You wake up believing you are safe. Not because life is easy, but because you think you finally found something steady. You open your eyes and there is someone beside you, breathing softly, existing in your space like proof that the chaos of the world can't reach you here. In that moment, you are convinced this is what wholeness feels like. You tell yourself this is it. This is the life you were meant to live. You build your days around that belief. The small apartment feels warmer. The job feels tolerable. Even the future feels less heavy because you are no longer carrying it alone. You start trusting the quiet happiness. You start trusting her. And slowly, without realizing it, you stop questioning anything that threatens that peace. Because questioning it feels dangerous. Because seeing cracks would mean admitting you could lose everything. You convince yourself love is enough. That loyalty is automatic. That if someone laughs with you, sleeps beside you, shares memories with you, they couldn't possibly be hiding anything. You ignore the moments that feel off. The pauses. The distance. The way your intuition whispers when you're trying to sleep. You tell yourself you're overthinking. You choose comfort over clarity. But illusions don't shatter all at once. They decay quietly. A phone turned face down. Hours unaccounted for. Smiles that arrive a second too late. And deep down, you feel it. That tightening in your chest. That sense that something is slipping away while you're still pretending to hold it. You don't want to look too closely, because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. Then comes the moment. The one you replay over and over in your mind. The moment you look, even though you know you shouldn't. The moment curiosity meets fear, and fear wins. And suddenly, the world tilts. Your heart starts racing, not because of anger, but because of disbelief. The words you see don't scream betrayal. They whisper it. And that's worse. Because whispers confirm what you've been denying. You feel stupid. Not because you trusted, but because you ignored yourself. You feel exposed, like the ground beneath you was never solid to begin with. And when she looks at you, confused, almost innocent, you realize something devastating. The version of her you loved so deeply may have only existed inside your own hope. This is where something shifts inside you. Not loudly. Not heroically. Quietly. Pain teaches you a brutal lesson. You don't lose people when they betray you. You lose illusions. You lose the future you imagined. You lose the story you told yourself to feel safe. And that loss cuts deeper than anger ever could. But here's the truth that breaks through the wreckage. The illusion didn't fail you. It revealed you. It showed you how deeply you can feel. How fully you can commit. How capable you are of believing in something real. And now, stripped of fantasy, you are standing face to face with reality. And in that moment, as everything you thought was perfect collapses, you realize this isn't the end of you. It's the end of pretending. The end of blindness. The beginning of seeing clearly, even when it hurts. You wake up the next day and the world is already different, even though nothing looks different. The sunlight hits the kitchen just like it always did. The coffee smells the same, and yet it all feels wrong. You move through the motions, your hand shaking just slightly as you pour the mug, trying to anchor yourself in routine. She walks in, humming, warm and familiar, and suddenly the contrast between what you see and what you feel is unbearable. Everything she does, every casual smile, every careless tilt of her head, becomes a knife twisting in your chest. You want to scream. You want to tear down the walls of that ordinary morning and demand answers. But you don't. You try to smile, to nod, to pretend that the storm raging inside you doesn't exist. The tension is thick in your chest, heavy and sharp, and you know she feels it. Her question, soft and hesitant, cuts through your pretense. You okay? You choke on the word no, but instead you give her the lie you've told yourself over and over. Yeah, just tired. That lie doesn't fool anyone. Not her. Not you. And every second that passes stretches the distance between the life you imagined and the reality pressing in on you. You finally speak the words you've been holding back, barely audible, each one a step off a cliff. We need to talk. And suddenly the room, your safe space, becomes a battlefield. Her hesitation, the flash of something in her eyes, panic, guilt, fear, throws you further. You realize it isn't just the message that hurts. It's the knowledge that she has been living another life alongside yours, that the foundation you thought solid has been hollowed from within. Her words, weak and careful, don't soothe you. They only ignite the questions that have been eating at the edges of your mind. Who? Why? How long? You want the truth, but the truth is slippery. She offers fragments, half explanations, leaving the rest to your imagination. Later, you sit with Alex, the one person who knows you better than anyone, and you spill it all. He listens, nods, says nothing easy. And in his silence, you understand that betrayal isn't a single act, it's a slow unraveling, a force that tests not just your trust but your sense of self. His words land like stones. You have to decide what you'll do next. You can't let this destroy you. Destroyed. That's exactly how it feels, and yet, even in that ruin, a spark flickers. Maybe destruction isn't inevitable. Maybe survival doesn't mean forgiveness, it means seeing clearly, moving deliberately. That evening, you're alone. The apartment, the city outside, even the phone glowing in the dim light, all of it is suffocating, relentless. The betrayal pulses through your veins, hot and sharp. And yet, beneath it, something shifts. Anger, slow and simmering, curls inside you. It isn't just hurt. It isn't just loss. It is the first taste of power, control over the unknown, the beginning of taking back what was taken from you. You realize the life you thought perfect is gone. Forever changed. And for the first time, you accept that maybe you don't want it back. Not the illusion. Not the half-truths. The only thing worth chasing now is the clarity you've been denied. And that clarity begins with fire. The days blurred together, each one heavier than the last. I moved through the apartment like a shadow, a body without a soul. Cups sat where they had been left, blankets folded, or unfolded, by her presence, and every little trace of her felt like a fresh wound. The silence of the city outside pressed in through the windows, indifferent, and I realized that the world had continued spinning even as mine had fractured. Alex tried. He called, he left messages, he even appeared at my door with that stubborn grin I once found comforting. "You can't keep shutting yourself away," he said. But how could I explain that the floor beneath me had vanished, that every heartbeat reminded me of betrayal, that every memory of her cut sharper than the day before? I didn't answer. I couldn't. Words felt like lies, and silence was the only thing that fit the hollow I carried inside. I didn't want to see Emily. Not because I hated her yet, but because I feared what I might do, or say, if I did. Her laughter, her voice, the memory of her hand in mine, it all collided with the one message that had ruined everything. And then, as the fog of hurt thickened, a darker thought crept in. Maybe she wasn't the only one. Maybe someone else had been pulling strings, guiding her, shaping the life I thought was mine. David's face flashed in my mind. His helpful advice, the subtle glances, the coincidences that had cost me so much. Could he have been part of it? Could betrayal be layered, like poison hidden in sweetness? The thought left me trembling, uncertain whom I could trust. Even Alex, who had always been my anchor, now seemed to exist behind a veil of suspicion I couldn't lift. Isolation had a way of twisting reality. Friends became threats. Memories became traps. Love became a weapon pointed at yourself. I stopped leaving the apartment. 3 days. 3 endless days of silence. The world outside felt alien, hostile, a place where laughter and light were no longer meant for me. Nights were worst of all. I lay awake, turning over every memory, every word, every touch, searching for signs, searching for answers that refused to appear. The betrayal was a weight pressing down, suffocating, relentless. Yet, even in the collapse, something stirred. A spark, small, almost imperceptible, deep inside me. It wasn't hope. Not yet. Not strength. It was curiosity, a dangerous pull to see beneath the surface, to uncover the truth. I didn't realize it at the time, but that spark was the first crack in the walls of my despair, the first whisper that maybe I could reclaim control, maybe I could survive. For now, though, I was alone. The apartment was colder, shadows stretching farther, silence heavier than ever. And still, I sensed it, an unshakable, terrifying truth. Betrayal didn't just break hearts. It broke the world you thought you knew. Mine lay in ruins. But ruins can be rebuilt. And in that tiny, frightening realization, I felt the faint stirrings of something I hadn't known I still possessed: survival. The apartment felt heavier than ever, weighed down not just by memories but by the silence of my own despair. I drifted through it like a ghost, each step stirring echoes of what had been. Every corner whispered her name, every object reminded me of her presence, and yet somewhere in that hollow ache, A faint, restless spark remained, the curiosity I hadn't yet named. It came as a knock, sharp and deliberate. My body froze. Who would come here? I hadn't called anyone, hadn't replied, hadn't let the world in. Open up, a voice said, firm, calm, unyielding. I hesitated, then slowly unlocked the door. Standing there was a man I barely knew, yet somehow seemed familiar. Grey streaks in his hair, a presence that radiated survival and quiet authority. Dr. Hayes, I said, my voice cracking. What? Why are you here? I'm here because you've been avoiding life, he said, stepping inside as if the room were his own. And because you need to hear something before you destroy yourself. I wanted to tell him to leave. I wanted to curl into the shadows and disappear. But I stayed. Something in his calm presence anchored me, fragile though it was. He gestured toward the couch. Sit. You look like a man haunted by ghosts. I sank into the cushions, uncertain why I obeyed. Emily, he began, almost casually. She didn't act alone. And not everything she did was malicious. I laughed, bitter and hollow. Not malicious? She betrayed me. She lied. How is that not malicious? Dr. Hayes didn't flinch. Sometimes people act out of fear, coercion, or forces beyond their control. I'm not excusing her. I'm giving you perspective. If you want to survive, you need to see the full picture. The word struck me, slicing through anger I hadn't yet processed. He continued, you are not powerless. You can choose how this shapes you. Revenge, despair, withdrawal, or growth. Only one will give you peace. Over the next few days, he didn't lecture. He asked questions. Why are you letting anger define you? What would you do if you truly understood her motives? How will you rebuild the life that was stolen from you? Each question hit deeper than I expected. I realized I had been living for her, seeking her approval, her affection. And now, she was gone. My life, my choices, were mine to reclaim, though I didn't yet know how. Slowly, I began small, short walks, talking to Alex, even calling Lily. The spark inside me, once fragile, began to grow. I felt control again, a sensation I hadn't known in weeks. Then came the twist. One evening, Dr. Hayes placed a folder before me. Photographs, letters, messages from Emily. My hands trembled as I read. She hadn't acted freely. Threats, coercion, manipulation shaped her decisions. My anger shifted. Was it at her, or at the forces guiding her hand? The world wasn't black and white. Betrayal wasn't simple. People weren't wholly cruel or innocent. And I, who thought I understood, realized I had understood nothing. I stayed up until dawn, processing, questioning, replaying every memory. Moments of happiness now felt fragile, almost unreal. And yet a clarity emerged. I didn't need revenge. I needed understanding, perspective, and the courage to rebuild myself. Dr. Hayes had planted a seed. Pain and betrayal had become a turning point. My life hadn't ended when she walked out. It had only begun in a way I hadn't imagined. For the first time in weeks, I felt it, a fragile, dangerous, exhilarating hope that I could survive this, and maybe become stronger than I had ever been. The fire inside me refused to die, even with Dr. Hayes' guidance and the small pieces of my life I had begun reclaiming. Anger simmered, constant and insistent, keeping sleep restless and thoughts jagged. I filled my days with work, exercise, routines meant to ground me, but nothing could drown the echo of her laughter, the memory of her hand in mine. Every glance from strangers, every couple walking hand in hand, it all felt like a reminder that my life had been dismantled, and she had moved on. I found myself watching her. Not maliciously, though a part of me knew I was skirting that line, but with desperate need, trying to understand her fully. She was gone, yet I needed to see her, to confirm the truth for myself. One evening, I spotted her leaving a cafe with Mia, carefree and untouched by the chaos she had left behind. A sharp pang hit me, longing, fury, and the impossible ache of being left behind. Why does she get to move on so easily? I muttered to myself, why am I still shattered? Revenge began to take shape, not in action, yet, but in thought, shadowed and insidious. I wanted her to feel the weight of the emptiness I carried, to understand the consequences of choices she hadn't fully owned. But Dr. Hayes' words echoed in my mind. You can choose how this shapes you. Revenge, despair, withdrawal, or growth. Growth felt impossible when every instinct in me screamed for retribution. Yet a stubborn part of me recognized his truth. Revenge would hollow me the same way I had been hollowed. Then David returned, casual, helpful, too perfectly timed. My instinct screamed. He was deeper in this than he appeared. The coincidences, the guidance while Emily was away, it all made sense. I confronted him, slamming my notebook onto his desk. "What are you doing? How deep does this go?" He leaned back, calm, amused. "You're imagining things. Don't take it out on me. Don't lie." I snapped. I know she didn't act alone. I know someone's been pulling strings. Silence. His smirk faltered slightly, but he didn't answer. In that pause, I realized the truth. My anger wasn't just about Emily anymore. It was about control, about power, about a life I thought I owned being manipulated. I was angry at the world, at fate, at everyone who let this happen. But amidst the rage, clarity emerged. I needed information, perspective, strategy. Revenge could wait. Observation, preparation, understanding, they were my tools now. I documented everything. Interactions, words, suspicious glances, patterns. Emily was no longer simply the villain. She was part of a larger puzzle I was determined to solve. Lily reached out again, sitting on the edge of my bed, eyes steady. "You don't have to figure this out alone," she said softly. "You can channel this into growth, into strength, into something that isn't just anger." Her words resonated. Revenge was tempting, yes, but the line between it and justice was thinner than I had imagined. Then a letter appeared under my door, unsigned, detailing Emily's actions in ways I hadn't known. Manipulated, coerced, pressured, David's influence now seemed certain. My anger sharpened but became focused. I realized revenge wasn't a single act. It was a shadow that could follow me for life. Knowledge, patience, preparation, they were the path to understanding, growth, and eventually, closure. That night, I sat by the window, city lights stretching endlessly. I didn't feel peace, not yet, but determination. The shadows of revenge still loomed, but they no longer consumed me. I had a plan, direction, and for the first time since everything fell apart, control returned to my life. I still wanted answers, still wanted justice, still wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done. But most importantly, I understood. My life, my choices, still belonged to me. And that understanding, fragile, dangerous, exhilarating, was enough to keep me moving forward. The moment I opened the folder, the world tilted. Hands trembling, I sifted through photographs, emails, messages, evidence of every secret meeting, every conversation I hadn't known existed, every thread of manipulation weaving through my life. Emily's betrayal had been only the surface. Beneath it was something far darker, far more deliberate. David's name appeared again and again, a pattern too precise to ignore. Every suggestion, every helpful comment, every small nudging of events had been calculated. He had orchestrated chaos, using Emily and me as pieces on his board. And then, Alex. Even Alex's name surfaced, less direct but present enough to see doubt. Was my best friend blind, or complicit? The question gnawed at me. I sank into my chair, gripping the edges as if the wood could anchor me to reality. My chest tightened, my mind a storm of grief, anger, and disbelief. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to shatter something tangible to match the storm inside. But I didn't. Weeks of painful lessons had taught me the danger of impulsive acts. They would only deepen the chaos. The clarity hit as sharply as the rage. The world had conspired against me, and I had been blind. Emily had been coerced, manipulated, trapped in ways I hadn't comprehended. David had used us both, exploiting my trust, my love, my vulnerability. Even Alex, whether naive or willfully blind, had failed me. Anger burned hotter than ever, but beneath it, something more potent emerged, insight. I saw the web of lies, manipulation, and deceit with unflinching clarity. For the first time, I realized I could either be consumed by it, or wield it. I could stop being a pawn. I could reclaim control, on my terms, deliberately, strategically. I didn't need revenge to feel powerful. I didn't need to hurt anyone to regain my life. But I could observe. I could prepare. I could act, when the moment demanded precision. Hours passed as I pieced it all together. Emily's actions, once sharp and personal, now fit within a broader, darker context. David's manipulations were cold, calculated, relentless. Even Alex's failures, though painful, revealed the frailty of trust, the vulnerability of human intention. Everyone I had counted on, Emily, Alex, even myself, was flawed, fallible, human. And in that understanding, a spark of strength ignited. By dawn, I felt it: control. Not forgiveness. Not peace. Not even satisfaction. But power. Knowledge as weapon. Insight as shield. The shadows of betrayal, though still present, no longer threatened to drown me. I leaned back, eyes closed, thinking of Emily, not with longing, not with hate, but with the cold recognition of her complexity. She had been a part of this, but not the entirety. The true architects had been cunning, human, flawed. And through their betrayals, I had discovered something essential. Survival was possible. Clarity was possible. Transformation was possible. The ultimate breaking point had arrived, and I would not crumble beneath it. I woke up that morning with a clarity that crept in quietly, like sunlight through a crack in the door. Anger was still there, sharp and familiar, but it no longer ruled me. For the first time in months, I felt a spark of freedom, the realization that my life didn't have to be defined by betrayal, manipulation, or heartbreak. Dr. Hayes had been right all along. Understanding the motives, pressures, and manipulations behind Emily's actions had changed everything. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I had knowledge, experience, and power, the ability to make choices. And I chose not revenge. I chose rebuilding. The first steps were small but meaningful. I returned to work with focus, refusing to let David's manipulations control my professional life. Each project, each meeting, I approached deliberately, observing carefully, trusting sparingly, asserting myself where I had previously held back. The subtle sense of reclaiming control was intoxicating. I extended the same care to my personal life. Running through empty streets at dawn, cooking my own meals, reconnecting with Lily, even calling Alex, not to confront, but to rebuild connection. I slowly let people back in. I realized how much I had missed human connection, the quiet comfort of trust, even if tentative. Then Emily appeared, unexpectedly, at a mutual friends gathering. Not the dramatic confrontation I had imagined, but cautiously, subtly, carrying a weight I recognized from my own struggle. I observed without reaction, noting the hints of regret in her eyes. I didn't need to act. Empathy and clarity had replaced anger. Dr. Hayes' words echoed in my mind. True growth comes not from revenge, but from the courage to reclaim your own life. Survival wasn't enough. I wanted transformation. I poured myself into passions, hobbies, writing, and ambitions I had neglected. Pain became something constructive, a force that built instead of destroyed. Nights once haunted by betrayal now held quiet satisfaction. Love returned too, quietly, not through Emily, but through someone present during my darkest hours. Lily, patient, consistent, and understanding, became a reminder that not all connections were tainted. For the first time, intimacy and trust felt safe. The final revelation was understanding Emily. She had acted under duress, shaped by forces far beyond my comprehension. Anger faded into recognition of human fragility. Forgiveness came, not for her, but for me, for liberation, freedom from the weight of resentment. By the end of the week, I could meet my own eyes in the mirror. I wasn't the naive, broken version of myself. I was stronger, wiser, tempered by betrayal, capable of navigating life with awareness and resilience. I had walked through fire, through manipulation, and emerged not broken, but reborn. That night, on the balcony, city lights stretching endlessly, I let the cool wind wash over me. I smiled without hesitation. My life had been shattered, but in the fragments, I found something infinitely more valuable, myself. And I understood, finally, that her walking out was not the end. It was the beginning of everything I was meant to become. I saw the message and paused. Can we talk? I owe you an explanation. My first instinct was to ignore it, to let it fade into the past. But something heavier than love, or longing, stopped me. The need for closure, the need to reclaim my own story. I agreed. Not with hope, not with fear, but with intention. I needed to see her one last time, not to relive the pain, but to confront it, understand it, and release it. We met at a quiet park, where autumn was just starting to turn the leaves gold. She sat on a bench, hands clasped, eyes downcast. The sunlight caught her hair, and for a moment, the old ache whispered. But I didn't allow it to pull me back. I had survived. I had been reborn. "Hi," she said softly, tentative, fragile. "Hi," I replied, steady. My voice carried the weight of someone who had walked through fire and come out intact. I want to explain," she said. "I know nothing I say can undo the pain I caused." "I don't want apologies," I said. "I want understanding. I want truth." Her words came raw and unfiltered. It wasn't just me. I was manipulated, coerced. I made choices I regret. I thought I was protecting us both, but I was wrong. Every lie, every secret. It wasn't because I didn't care. I was trapped. This time, her honesty didn't pierce me. It pressed against reality, yes, but in that pressure, I found clarity. "I see that now," I said. "I understand you were trapped. But that doesn't erase the nights I spent shattered, the distrust I felt, or the way my world fell apart." She nodded, eyes glistening. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just needed you to know the truth." We sat in silence, the ache present but powerless. I had seen the full picture, the manipulation, the coercion, the human frailty behind every betrayal. My life no longer belonged to her. It belonged to me. "I've grown," I said. "I've learned. I've survived. I don't need revenge, and I don't need to hurt anyone. But I needed this, the truth, the closure, to move forward." She exhaled softly, a weight lifting from her shoulders. "I'm glad you're stronger. You deserve that." Closure wasn't about her. It was about reclaiming myself, my choices, my emotions, my agency. We stood, exchanged a nod, and walked away without promises, without lingering touches, without illusions. Just acknowledgement and quiet dignity. As I left the park, the scent of fallen leaves in the wind, I felt something I hadn't in years: peace. Not happiness, not love, not joy, but a deep, resonant calm that comes when you finally release what was never yours to hold. Returning home, I found my apartment truly mine. No shadows, no regrets. I reconnected fully with Lily, rebuilt bonds, reclaimed my career, and embraced life with clarity. Emily's betrayal had been devastating, but it forged me. I had faced the breaking point, navigated shadows of revenge, and emerged stronger, wiser, free. Sitting on my balcony that evening, city lights stretching endlessly, I realized life begins not when everything is perfect, but when you take ownership of your story. When you let go of what was never yours, you create space for what is truly possible. And I smiled. Not for her. Not for the past. But for me. I had walked through betrayal, despair, and the abyss, and I had come out alive, reborn, and free. My life was just beginning. Life didn't suddenly become easy after that day in the park. Memories of Emily, David, and the chaos they had caused still flickered across my mind, but they no longer held power over me. They were shadows at the edges of my vision, reminders of what I had endured, yes, but also markers of how far I had come. I began to embrace the ordinary again. Mornings became a ritual, coffee in hand, watching the city awaken, quiet reflection filling the spaces that used to be heavy with dread. Work no longer felt like a battlefield. I approached each project with focus and confidence, applying lessons I had learned from past betrayals. David's manipulations, once a source of anger, had taught me vigilance. I observed carefully, trusted selectively, and protected my boundaries with precision. Lily became a constant presence in my life. She was patient, grounding, and gentle, everything Emily had never been. Our connection wasn't rushed. I wasn't looking for someone to fill the void Emily left. I was building something new, something strong, founded on honesty, understanding, and shared experience. The quiet tenderness we shared reminded me that love could heal without drama, patience without pressure, intimacy without fear. I also reclaimed time for myself. I returned to writing, pouring my thoughts and experiences onto the page. I reconnected with friends I had pushed away during my spiral of grief, discovering that community and connection were as vital as self-reflection. Slowly, the weight of loneliness lifted, replaced by purpose and engagement with life. The city itself mirrored my transformation. Crowded streets, bright lights, The noise and chaos of daily life, they no longer overwhelmed me. I saw possibility everywhere: a cafe to linger in, a bookstore to explore, a quiet street where the air felt fresh and unclaimed. My life, once defined by betrayal, heartbreak, and manipulation, now brimmed with opportunity. And yet, I carried a quiet lesson with me every day. Growth does not erase pain. It transforms it. Every scar, every sleepless night, every heartbreak became scaffolding for strength. I did not pretend the past didn't hurt. I refused to let it dictate my future. Occasionally, I thought of Emily, not with longing, not with anger, but with acknowledgement. She had been part of my story, and I had been part of hers. Some doors close so new ones can open. I understood that she had walked out so I could step fully into my own life. Work, love, friendships, and personal pursuits became my focus. I volunteered at times, guiding others through challenges I recognized all too well. Pain and betrayal were universal, but survival, resilience, and transformation were choices. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I stood on the balcony of my apartment, looking at the city sprawled beneath me. The wind carried the scent of autumn leaves, crisp and sharp. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I looked forward without fear. The horizon stretched wide, unbroken, filled with possibilities I was ready to meet. My past, with all its darkness and deceit, had not destroyed me. It had prepared me, hardened me, and guided me toward clarity. And as night fell over the city, I understood something profound. Life is not measured by the pain we endure, but by the courage we summon to move forward, to rebuild, and to embrace the unknown. My life, once shattered, was now mine entirely, and it was just beginning. Characters developed and introduced. Protagonist, fully healed, emotionally resilient, in control of his narrative. Lily represents new love, emotional stability, and trust. Emily O. David or Alex, past influences, now only as lessons learned. Twist a resolution. The protagonist fully embraces his new life, acknowledging the past without being defined by it. Growth, love, and personal agency define his future.